what would be the best solution without affecting the students of these universities. I don't know what category E is, according to the last category, the least quality in Ecuador, and they suggest that they close them down. I don't have an answer for the national program. I can tell in Argentina what we do in relation to the universities and programs. In Argentina, we have a system that's quite strict to incorporate new university institutions. Strictly, I'll give you some statistics. They've applied for doing new private universities in Argentina in the last 12 years. About 120 new institutions have applied, and 12 of the 120 have been accepted. Of course, with those dynamics, there are fewer and fewer applicants. So there's been a very strict policy for entry into the university system. Regarding programs, then there's a system of accreditation of the proposals for programs for undergraduate and postgraduate. This tends to solve the problem at the beginning. If the program is not good, if the promise of the program is not adequate, then they don't even begin. In any event, there's also accreditation of programs, which the law authorizes for 6 years. From the very beginning, we proposed that if we can do more, we can do less. So we'd like an intermediate category of 3 years. When we observe that the programs don't they don't meet the standards, but in a certain amount of time they could meet them, then we accredit them for 3 years, and along with that, the Ministry of Education has, for example, in the case of engineering, the program of improving engineering programs, where they take their word. They say, here's a bunch of deficits that you have to cover over this time period, and they tend to solve them. I'm talking about the case of the federal universities that have governmental funding. For private universities, that improvement has to be covered by them. That's what we do now. Regarding this concrete question, the truth is that it's not my business to answer about Ecuador. Thank you for Ramon Torrent. Can political involvement make higher education better or worse, and how? This is the second time I've had the occasion to say in Latin America. In Lima last year, I said in Lima that when I was young, I had the idea that the principle of university autonomy should be recognized in 2710 of the Spanish Constitution. Therefore, I believe in university autonomy. However, I think that teaching is a public service, and consequently, the problem is not political influence. I'm sure there will be a university policy, there will be politics in the university at the national level and national policies, and also in international cooperation. These policies may be good or bad, or that is a horse of another color. And I'd also like to say, because I like to say what I think, that often we would have to assume that autonomy, university autonomy, could become absolutely the opposite of the freedom of instruction. And we have the experience perfectly well in social science. If a professor at a Spanish university, an autonomous Spanish university, says certain things, then their academic career is guaranteed to come to an end, because the people who are controlling promotions will never give him a promotion. So, university autonomy, like all these principles, is a principle that has to be understood within a cooperative relationship, but with the tension between the policies of the public authorities who are responsible for university service, like all educational services, to respect the rights and interests of the public, which not necessarily will an autonomously managed university will respect. Thank you. Also, they're asking Ramon Torres why he has contradicted Andre Ove. No, I didn't contradict him for one reason. I contradicted him for the one reason because I am a person who believes in debate. And because in public activities, it shouldn't be, as I was saying before, a repetition of a PowerPoint. It should, and or dialogue between deaf people. I've come here to learn, and the way you learn is by arguing about things. And so if somebody should be astonished that somebody should discuss something, if they should argue something, then I'm not surprised, but concerned. Thank you. Francisco Cervantes, what do you think would be the main constraint so that Latin America would not have major research or creations? I think I never said that Latin America doesn't have major relevant research. On the contrary, I'm sure that we have research. But what it does seem to me is that the creation of a common Latin American space is a task that, as Roman Torren was mentioning, is very complicated. It's hard to do, and we want to begin from very ambitious undertakings. That's why in Mexico we began with modestly ambitious projects that could be done, that were doable. And in fact, we've been working with a group of the UNED in Spain, deciding about another project that we can do in Latin America, the Caribbean, and with Spain, which is to be able to have a common ground for graduate studies, for master's programs, with mobility and virtual mobility of students. So I think that in order to be able to think that we should construct this space in Latin America that we've talked so much about, I think we have to begin with projects that are doable, that we can demonstrate that we can network. I think another level of complexity that Ramon was talking about is that all of the projects depend on people. And mobility of people in positions, there's a high turnover. If somebody is in a management or a rector position, when they round out their term, the one who takes their place is quite likely to have their own project. So the previous ones will move along, will be postponed. So it's difficult if the projects are not coordinated by the professors, researchers, or directors of the academic entities. So that's why I was talking about that. We still have to work a lot to be able to think about creating a Latin American or space like we've been talking about. And finally, for Bastian Bowman, is it possible to have a Latin American Magna Carta? Is it possible to have a Latin American Magna Carta? Well, it's a global document, and at least in our opinion, it also makes sense in Latin America because these are the values and principles that are global of academics. They're not European, they're not only from Latin America, they're not only from the United States or Asia, but what matters is to make an interpretation about what these values mean in the Latin American context. And this discussion we have to have, it has to take place here in Latin America. And the Observatory of the Magna Carta can help in this process, in this discussion. That's why we're discussing this chapter, this regional chapter of the observatory with the signatory universities in the region. What we say is that the values are the same, but the interpretation is what counts, and the context is regional. So, some aspects in the Magna Carta mean different things in different regions. With this, you can you have to work with this. But in my opinion, it's not necessary to make to rewrite a new document just for Latin America. Ramon Torrent has to make a couple of closing comments. I'd like to make two comments that I think are important about what Francisco just said that I liked very much. The first is with a smile that I think he will like. It's a little critical to scandalize the person that thinks that we can't criticize the speakers. And the critical comment that also has to do with the internet and with what came before is as follows. I'm sure that all of you who are here in the room, especially the students, I'm sure you've all looked at the map of the Americas that came out in Francisco's presentation. And weren't you surprised? Didn't you realize that the map of the Americas that you find when you look around at the internet is a lie? The geography is ideology. If you looked at that map of the Americas, North America is much bigger than Latin America, South America. And Greenland is almost as big as all of South America. And this is not true. This is a map of the dominant ideology. And this is a map looking from the top down that makes the South small. So, as I would like to ask Francisco that the next time to change the map and put in the map that will correspond to the reality. This shows to what degree we have to pay attention to how the information that we get is being manipulated, even though we don't realize. The comment, absolutely serious, is that it seems extremely important and positive. This last slide, the last page of your presentation, when he insisted that common spaces, no matter how difficult they may be, are not created only on the basis of a few higher education institutions. I think this is essential because this means to me that we must criticize, or you can think whatever you want, but the central problem of the current policy of university cooperation of the European community with Latin America. In the new version of the new programs and the window for third countries from the two worlds, the whole idea is to promote collaboration between a few universities of Europe and Latin America, those that are well positioned, those that have an existing network, not necessarily the best. Then if they don't need a network, they should change networks, and then those who can apply for projects, those who know who the functionaries are, or those who want to get into a cooperation mechanism between the European Union and Latin America. So, what you've said, I agree wholeheartedly, is that this is the crucial strategic issue for cooperation between the European Union and Latin America. Either you cooperate or promote cooperation between all the universities, or just among several. I think this is a key issue, and that's why I wanted to underscore that. I would add even that the ones that we should cooperate with are the ones that need the cooperation, because I do think that even in our country there are 3 or 4 universities that don't need to cooperate with anybody, that there are others that without cooperation they would need a lot of work to get up to the proper levels. Thank you. Would like to thank our speakers for these interesting presentations. We'd like to thank you. Another round of applause, please, for their participation.